All right, so in our last video, we talked about securing cables to boxes. Whether it's a single gang, two gang, three gang, doesn't matter. So if you have non-metallic sheet cables, you have to secure them to boxes. But there is an allowance for a non-metallic boxes where you would not be securing the cable to the actual box. And you might be familiar with that with a lot of the nail-up boxes. Now, some of them have built-in connectors. Some of them just have a tab you break out, or if you break it totally out, now you've got nothing securing the cable. Well, then there's rules you have to follow for that. So let's look at all of that when it comes to non-metallic boxes, single gang, okay? Because if it's a two gang, three gang, or four gang, it's gonna have an internal clamp built into it, okay? But single gangs, you can get them without that clamp. So let's go look at it. All right, so here's where we're at. We're at 3-3B in your course material. And this is the video, right? This image. So here in this scenario, if you can see in here, these just get knocked out. Now, keep something in mind. Some of the manufacturers that make these single gang nail-up boxes create a tab that is still considered a clamp. Means you only break one side of it, and when you put the cable in there, it actually will pinch against the actual sheathing. So then it is considered clamped. So check with the different manufacturers for the different nail-up boxes that you have. If you happen to remove it, like many people do, they just simply take the back side of their side cutters and pop it out. If you do that, now you have no connection there or no clamp on the box. If it is a single gang box like this and it's non-metallic, then we have some rules that you can follow. So here's the first thing. Let's look at A. So if the box has a knockout and it's totally knocked out, then the code says, okay, look, non-metallic sheath cables not fastened to the box, which is against what was required by 314.17 previously that we saw in the past video. It says all cables are to be connected to boxes, right? But here it's saying under the exception to 314.17b2, it's saying, okay, look, if it is a single gang nail-up box of specific dimension, and we'll go look at the code, if it's of specific dimension, then tell you what, you don't have to secure that cable to the box, but you're going to put a securement within 18 inches of that box. Okay, so here's what it says. Non-metallic sheath cable not fastened to the box must be secured within 8 inches. Okay, 8 inches of the box, and that is under 314.17b2 exception. There's again, folks, y'all should be going and looking at that, and we're going to go look, okay, for that. All right, so let's go look really quick. So here's our exception. So here's what we saw in a previous video where it requires cables have to be secured to the box, right? That's all these requirements to be secured to the box, right? But then you've got this exception right here. It says where a non-metallic sheath cable is used, so there you go, caveat there. It's got to be a non-metallic sheath cable. That's an NMB, okay? It says is used with single gang non-metallic boxes not larger than 2 1/4 by 4, so that's a simple nail up. Hey, if you remember earlier in some of the other videos, I said when we had an 18 cubic inch, 20 cubic inch, 22 cubic inch, all those boxes typically are 2 1/4 by 4. It's the depth that changes that gives them more cubic inches. Okay, so this is just a single simple nail up box. All right, so now, and it says that, and it is what? It's mounted in the wall or the ceiling, and where the cable is fastened within 8 inches of the box, measured along the sheath, and where the sheath extends through a cable knockout, not less than 1/4 inch. So in the graphic, again, we'll go back to the code, but in this graphic, you see right here, it's extending down through the knockout at least 1/4 inch through the opening, and it's being secured within 8 inches, as you can see right here. That's okay. It's considered in place, it's not going to move, and everything looks good. Okay, let's go back to the code. Under the exception, all right, now let's see here, it says, and then it says if all this is done, then securing of the cable to the box is not required. Okay, so secure it within 8 inches, take at least 1/4 inch of that sheathing into the box. As long as you're secured within 8 inches, then I don't need to do what the general rule said and connect all cables to boxes. I don't have to do it if I follow this exception. Okay. All right, notice also at the end here, it says multiple cable entries shall be permitted in a single cable knockout opening, okay? So I could bring, let's just go back because I hear this from a lot of people from time to time. It says that I can only bring one cable in this opening. Well, that's not what it says. It says multiple cable entries shall be permitted in a single cable knockout opening. Okay, so unless something from the manufacturer says no, I only want to have one cable per opening. Typically, those openings would let you take up to 2 cables into it. All right, but just remember, the biggest thing with this is that if you've got one of those nail-up boxes and it does not have a clamp built into it, and you knock out the opening, that you can take the cable in it, non-metallic sheath cable, put 1/4 inch of the sheathing into the box. Still going to make sure you have your 6 inches of free conductor, which we hadn't looked at yet, and make sure you secure that cable within 8 inches. Oh, and by the way, remember what it says? It says along the cable. So you measure along the cable, okay? So this type of scenario, right? Because what did it say? We'll look one more time because we want to make sure we got it. It says 8 inches, measure where it says to be fastened within 8 inches of the box, measured along the sheathing, okay? Measured along the sheathing. Important. All right, of course we have B here. Always important to remember, you have to have at least 6 inches of free conductor to be able to make up those devices. One thing to remember in the 2023 code, now if this wasn't 6 inches, you're allowed to splice it to get you 6 inches. So that is something that people have been doing for years, but now the code has just made it so much easier to do. Okay, but you still got to have 6 inches to work with total at the end of the day. And then C, which is right here, it says the cable sheathing shall extend into the box at least 1/4 inch through the cable knockout. Right, so as you can see right here, it's sticking in at least 1/4 inch. Now, can you have more than 1/4 inch? Sure you can. The code only wants a minimum amount in there. It doesn't care if you put more in there. Now, it might be sloppy and you don't like it and people want to cite all kinds of things, but in reality, I could have 1 inch in there if I want. I could have 2 inches if I want. Probably make it harder to cut in the box, but that's perfectly okay. I got to have at least 1/4 inch. Now, caution. All permitted wiring methods must be secured to the box unless the exception in 314.17b2 has been met. So again, other wiring methods like MC cable, AC cable, all those type of things, those have to be secured to the box. Under this exception, the exception talks about non-metallic sheath cable. So that's the only thing that exception applies to, okay? So there you go. So in a previous video, you saw that we have to connect all cables to boxes, MC cables, AC cables, everything to boxes. But in a single gang box, we do have a provision where we don't have to physically connect the cable to the box, but we do have to secure it within 8 inches. And it could be within 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, or even 2 inches if you want. But I have to do it within 8 inches, and I have to make sure that at least 1/4 inch of sheathing enters into the box. All right? And remember, this only applies to single gang non-metallic nail-ups. Okay? And the dimensions of that box is 2 1/4 by 4. That could be a 20 cubic inch, 18 cubic inch, or even a 22 cubic inch, because the depth is what changes a cubic inch. The actual dimensions of it are still 2 1/4 by 4. And that's a typical nail-up box. All right? Hopefully you got something out of that. We'll see you in the next video as we press further in to Chapter 3.